I'm Alexa. How are you all? Hi. I've been covering the Bradley Manning trial since December 2011, and I'm doing handwritten transcripts because there is no public court docket. That there's nothing more annoying than an indignant, outnumbered jackass, and we know that there's nothing more terrifying than a mob of strangers. Others don't agree with you, so you can't be so sure yourself. Frothy emotional appeals are for fruitcakes. So try to be like the lucky ones, which is another way of saying someone else's problem. And it ain't gonna change because your choice is the lesser of two evils. Necessity is not the mother of invention, it's actually against the law. And you are a criminal because Disney owns the copyright and your congressman. Plus, you don't know enough. And you don't have to know because it's classified. And your curiosity and concern are a national security threat that can and will be exploited by terrorists using the internet, aided by whistleblowers, journalists, and publishers who are providing you and our enemies with information. That is why the legal proceedings for United States versus Private First Class Bradley Manning are being conducted in secrecy at Fort Lee. That is why I was threatened with arrest in the media center in July 2012 because I accidentally learned that the reason that journalists at the largest leak case in U.S. history, a trial with no public transcripts, court filings, or rulings in the United States of America are not allowed to use their computers because there's a retirement party at Smallwood Hall. And you are not capable anyway. You do not know. You know this because you were not chosen. You were not given access. You were not elected, and nobody cares what you think. You are powerless. There are moments in life when the playing field changes and when tested beliefs crumble. When we realize that the most important things and our opportunity has nothing to do with what we think we already know. The conflict we aimed to avoid, not only with others, but with ourselves, is unavoidable. And we can't, despite how much we'd like to, lie to ourselves, lie to others, and do nothing at all. We discover an obligation and a desire within ourselves to do the next right thing. And therein we find our freedom and all the responsibilities and consequences that come with it. Fortune favors us because suddenly the problem is our problem. We thought we weren't smart enough, but what we thought as being smart turns out to be the mental masturbation of privileged pundits with high-level access and captive audiences talking amongst themselves, about themselves, for their own benefit and not ours, and more importantly, not the public's. We aren't informed enough, and yet our desire to know, to learn, to understand, and to share seems as natural as breathing. And we realize that with public information, we are potent, because access to information allows us to know something tangible about ourselves and about the world that we animate and the reality that animates us. And we care. Don't let anyone tell you, least of all government, that you don't have a right to know, to learn, and to understand, that you don't have a right to care or to do something about it. Maturity is facing reality of our lives, the ones we didn't choose, the reality of government, the one we are responsible for, and the challenges of our age, the one we realize are upon us now. And making that choice from where we really are, not some fantastical point of perfect omniscience, perfect psychology, and perfect security, but from this imperfect and uncertain moment. With the light of public information, we can survey the landscape, the tracks of others, and forge new paths. In the darkness of our individual and collective delusions, we walk blindly in a circle in a state of demoralization, uselessness, self-pity, and ignorance. PFC Bradley Manning and WikiLeaks gave us light. And because of them, we have the fortune to do something because the alternative is hopeless. And our skills and support are needed. Our resources and talents are needed to safeguard the accountability that comes from public information by standing up and supporting both in spirit and financially when we can them against prejudicial prosecutions and extra-legal applications of power. Public ignorance through overclassification, public ignorance by obscurity engendered by laziness and privilege, public ignorance by the prejudicial prosecutions and extra-legal applications of power from entrenched interests with outdated business models is a suicide pact for our social contract.
2 years ago, Washington classified 77 million documents. The source of that is the Information Security Oversight Office, a federal agency. Last year, that number went up to classifying 92 million documents. How free are we in this country if our government is classifying 92 million documents in any given year? I ask you. How does WikiLeaks disclosures measure up to this? I'll tell you, what Bradley Manning is alleged to have leaked to the public, to WikiLeaks, is not even 1% of what the government classifies in any given year. Let's keep things in perspective. Far from some radical, wild-eyed, utopian drive to total transparency, what WikiLeaks and Bradley Manning have allegedly done is pragmatically shown a bright beam of light where we badly need it. Now, the allergic reaction of the media, the intellectuals, the law schools, the nonprofits, and the government to WikiLeaks is very strange, given that it has long been part of our American political tradition to have a modicum of transparency and openness. This is not an idea that Julian Assange thought up 2 years ago while sitting on a sofa in Australia. It was JFK who said, after all, that the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a pretty middle-of-the-road Democrat, he's senator from New York, he served in Nixon's cabinet, wrote simply that secrecy is for losers. Though I disagree with Moynihan with the late Moynihan on a number of things, he wrote a great book, a polemic against government secrecy. Anyone here remember Woodrow Wilson's 14 points? Well, the very first one of them contains this language: open covenants of peace, openly arrived at, after which there shall be no private international understandings of any kind, but diplomacy shall proceed always frankly and in the public view. In the public view. And going back to James Madison, a popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. And I think our foreign policy and our statecraft for the past dozen years has been absolutely a tragic farce. You couldn't think of a better definition. And by the way, the James Madison that I just quoted was not Noam Chomsky's teaching assistant in The Summer of Love. It's the fourth president of the United States and the primary author of the U.S. Constitution. Now, I know James Madison could not have foreseen things like a black president, or permanent U.S. military bases deep into Central Asia as some kind of vital security need for us, supposedly. But I know one thing that Madison could also never have foreseen is that documents from his presidency would still be classified over 200 years later. And it's just last year that the National Security Agency finished declassifying documents from 1809 in Madison's first term. Declassification, when it does happen, is measured in geological time. We have the phenomenon now of reclassification, where documents that had once been declassified are now made secret again. Declassification has slowed down under the Obama administration, and overclassification is intensifying. I have to tell you something. I hope you don't find it offensive. You may want to cover your children's ears, but knowing what your government is doing is really not such a bad thing.